To my mind, there's kind of three parts to that prioritization. There's the technical view, there's the business context, and there's the threat landscape. The technical view is, I've got all these different tools. They've each got a view that they're presenting about things they found that they need to be addressed or remediated. The business context is for your business, the business of the customers I'm working with. Where's their most critical data? They have different business units that do things differently with different tools. Maybe they've got different geographical breakdown if they're a multinational company. There's a business context to what they're trying to do around all this. And then the last one, the threat landscape, is what kind of threat actors are out there today? Are they targeting my vertical? Are they using methods that are worrisome to me? So I think the prioritization becomes reading through all that, the technical input I'm getting from the security tools I've got, my business context, and the landscape of threats out there, so that I can get some sort of across the board prioritized view about the things that I need to do first. Tim Dickinson, I'm the Technical Success Manager at Nagomi Security. I've been here since the start of the year. So I work with the customers that Nagomi has to help them implement the solution after they purchased it, the Nagomi platform. How do they implement it? How do they use it to improve their security posture? How do they get the business outcomes they want to get with it, de-risk their business? So for me, it's all about the actual implementation, getting value from it, and helping customers deliver that stuff.
I'm Victor. I'm the sales engineering lead for Nagomi. I help customers, make the right decision when it comes to Nagomi products and what we're offering. And, I help make sure that they find the right fit, that we connect the right tools to the environment, that we do and conduct a successful POV. And I've been in cybersecurity for over 10 years. So I can say that when Nagomi comes in, it's very common to have very immature organizations that don't even know where their data is, which tools are connected together, which configurations are enforced, which tools they're using for which capability. So I help them make sense of that, right? I try to understand who's controlling what, who's the product owner, what capabilities are enforced, who's making sure computers are patched, who's making sure that their EDR has configurations enforced. So I do a lot of discovery once I get there. And sometimes we have surprises. So we end up realizing that, hey, this specific tool was not managed by anyone because since that person left, it was just forgotten. So I help uncover a lot of surprises and help map out their tools and environment. I will say that it's usually just asking questions, right? We need to understand who's managing what. Sometimes you have like those ghost-owned tools. No one really knows who's managing them. So it's just about understanding, hey, for your top 10 or 15 tools, who's managing them and what are they, first of all? So those are the first questions I asked. Next step is really meeting the tool owners, the product owners, and asking them, how do they manage their tools? What sort of baseline, which capabilities are they enforcing? How's their coverage? Just understanding how they're managing their tools, because there's always differences between the product owners and the tool owners. So it's really interesting to understand how they're managing it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, when I work with customers, they've made a decision to implement a platform and undertake a program that they want to make use of to improve the security posture. So then prioritization really becomes, with all the information that you've got, that constant flow of all of the input you're getting, tasks you're given, alerts from different tools, background work is what do I do first? And then after I do that, what do I do next? We've all got lots of data. Prioritization then becomes, what do I do about it? And to my mind, there's kind of three parts to that prioritization. There's the technical view, there's the business context, and there's the threat landscape. The technical view is, I've got all these different tools, maybe a vulnerability management tool and a network monitoring tool and an endpoint protection tool. They've each got a view that they're presenting about things they found that they need to be addressed or remediated, critical to low priority. That's the technical view. The business context is for your business, the business of the customers I'm working with. Where's their most critical data? Do they have different business units that do things differently with different tools? Maybe they've got different geographical breakdown. If they're a multinational company, perhaps there's a certain concern the board has right now. There's a business context to what they're trying to do around all this. And then the last one, the threat landscape, is what kind of threat actors are out there today? Are they targeting my vertical? Are they using methods that they're worrisome to me? So I think the prioritization becomes reading through all that. The technical input I'm getting from the security tools I've got, my business context, and the landscape of threats out there, so that I can get some sort of across the board prioritized view about the things that I need to do first. I find it interesting because the most difficult part is almost always the second point. It's not the tools, right? They bought a tool. Those tools are very specialized for doing what they do. You reporting on vulnerabilities, keeping emails secure, whatever. The threat landscape, who are the attackers and the campaigns that are active today, that information, there's paid tools, free open source tools that can give you that information. You can just read the news. The hard part for a lot of business is the second point of figuring out their own business context, because this is something the tools can't do for you out of the box. And it's also something that you've got to agree. There's probably a lot of stakeholders in the business that need to decide that. What are the business units that you want to consider? What are the crown jewels of your critical data and your critical assets? What metrics and KPIs do you want to use to make sure that your security posture is improving? What decisions do you want to make as a business about which risks you might be willing to accept in a trade-off? Because that does happen too. So I think actually getting companies to sit down and do the hard work of what's my business look like? What's important to my business? What measures am I going to use? What am I going to ignore? That's actually where they struggle the most. One that comes to mind is a large healthcare network provider in the US that I work with. And it's a business built on kind of acquisition of lots of different business units for different medical staffing situations. They got, I think, more than a dozen different subsidiary companies, but one umbrella group over all of them. And so they've had to come up with some different approaches and different rules for coverage, because there's some security tools they use that are shared across the group, but some that are individual to different companies. And so they've had to come up with what those rules look like for what they expect to see with their security coverage. And they've also come up with some slightly different measures of success for those different businesses, depending on the different needs of what those businesses are. So, as well as reporting upwards to the group level chief information security officer. So that company, for instance, has done a lot of thinking about what are the different business units, what are the different critical assets and data between them, what are the different measures they're going to use, both individually and kind of at a group level for success. And different businesses can decide to acknowledge risks in different ways. So yeah, that's one example.
And if I can add to Tim's point, something that's super interesting that I find a lot, and we keep running into that into POVs, is organizations that think they know. So they will say, yes, we have 5,000 accounts, 150 crown jewels, and so on and so forth. And when we do POV, we end up finding things that they just were not aware of. And it sort of rebalances or shifts all the priorities, and everything just gets, ends up changing. So it's really interesting how sometimes they think they have a good grasp on what they own and what they want to prioritize. But at the end of the day, aggregating all the data from the different tools, that changes things a little bit. So it's very interesting.
I think that's a really good point, that it's kind of essential to prioritization that you even know what you're prioritizing. And Victor's exactly right. And until they start to do the work of getting more of this visibility, the prioritization they may have thought they should have is not the prioritization that they actually end up needing. And that can happen throughout the life cycle too, because later on, they may change tools, different things may happen, different business needs happen. So it is always dynamic, and you need to continuously look at these things. Yeah. So this is where I spend most of my time. What Nagomi does really, really well is Well, and that's what Nagomi does really well. It takes all that data and turns it into a so what, or so what do I do today? Bunch of information. We do this, I think, a couple of ways. We can streamline your workflow by showing you clearly what's the missing policy or configuration, or the policy or configuration that's not best practice for any of the tools that you've got. We can show you, here are the existing policies you've got. So if you want to implement a best practice policy for your tool, you can add it to one of these or create a new policy. We also highlight all the assets that might be not covered by that policy or that config. And then the final thing we do really that I think is also very important is add in the step-by-step instructions for how to fix that. What policy do you need to define, or what tool level configuration thing do you need to set? So that means we can send a complete package from, there's usually some teams are identifying this needs to be fixed, and giving that information to some team that needs to fix it. If you can give them, here's all the existing policies, we need to modify or add to these to set this policy, we need to make sure that these assets, the specific list of assets, are now also covered by that policy. That's the best package you can give a team for remediation. That's giving them all the necessary steps and the necessary information to do what they need to do. And then to make it even more efficient, what Nagomi does is we can integrate to ticketing systems. So help desks, IT service management systems. We let you not only launch a ticket in that system, but attach all that information. The steps to fix it, the list of assets that need to be covered, bam. So that makes things really easy if you can bring all those things together.
And what I will add, for me, it's very simple. When we connect all the tools into POV and they see everything that's wrong, they end up with a list of about 150 things. What they like about the execution layer is that we can prioritize that for them. So I know that they have a limited number of tickets. I always say that. I tell them, look, you have 5 tickets for the week. What should they be focused on? And so with our list, with our prioritization module, that helps them to prioritize the top 5 items that are going to have the biggest impact on our environment without necessarily focusing on a single tool or a single program, such as identity or vulnerability management. So they can look holistically at their whole environment and focus on the 5 most impactful things.
I think I've seen it transform things in 2 main ways. The first way is that depending on the size of the company, often there were security operations teams that did not themselves have direct visibility into the tools, or at least all of the tools. They would often have to ask other tool teams to collect information or prepare information or look for exposures. But Nagomi now puts that centralized view into the hand of the SecOps team, so they can look at things themselves. They're not so dependent on asking other teams for information. The other way it transforms things is kind of related to what I said a minute ago about handing the complete remediation package off to a team to do things. That really has accelerated things a great deal, because what would happen a lot before is that a security operations team might identify, okay, we've got this one workstation, doesn't seem to have the endpoint protection tool on it that it needs. They would say to the remediation team, the security operations center, maybe, hey, we've noticed this machine doesn't have all of the tools on it should. Can you fix it? And any others that might also be missing those tools. And they would put the work of identifying other problems and all that legwork back on the remediation team. And that would really slow things down, because now it's off to that team to do whatever legwork they need to do to find what other things need to be fixed. And now with something like Nagomi, because you're giving that complete package of here are the things that need to be fixed, and here's all of the assets that it needs to be fixed on, you're not farming out that work. You're automating that work, and you're not requiring another team, the fix team, to go out and manually look for other things that might fit the pattern and fix it. They don't have to do their own investigation. And that just really makes things move a lot faster, and it gives you a lot more confidence that things are being done completely.
Yeah. So from my standpoint, from my point of view, very simple, very straightforward. It's usually a one and done process, but go talk to your product owners, go talk to your tool admins, make sure that all of the tools are mapped in Nagomi, make sure that they're all connected. instantly you're going to get visibility. You'll know what is configured, what is covered. Do you have any policy drifts? So all that visibility is going to be instantly uncovered for you to see. And honestly, you don't need to do this more than once, but at least you'll be able to get a glimpse of your environment very, very quickly. That is usually a very quick process for us. So I highly recommend that.
For me, I think one practical step for prioritization, I'm going to go back to the point I raised earlier about the point that's difficult for companies, and that is understanding their own business context. That the amount of time you spend understanding which sets of data are your most important, which accounts and machines are the most important, what rules you want to set up for reporting the status of your security protection, and what do you want to see, how do you want to report it upwards to the board or a CISO or whatever. All of that is really, really important. It is, as I said, often the most difficult part. And so the more time you spend up front thinking about what you want that to look like, I think that's time well spent, because you've already got the tools. You've already got the other tools in place to do what you need. Ultimately, if you don't bring everything together, the tools you've got, the business context you got, and the outside threat reality as it exists today, you're not really doing prioritization. You're just firefighting piecemeal in a tool by tool way, and that's never going to be the best thing for your business.